30 seconds. That's all it took. 30 seconds to forge a legend. A storm of lead and fury on a dusty street in Tombstone, Arizona. Forget what you've seen in the movies. The gunfight at the OK Corral wasn't a noble duel between good and evil. It was a messy, brutal, and very personal collision of ambition, pride, and fear. This is the real story of what happened on October 26, 1881. A story forged not in Hollywood studios, but in the harsh, unforgiving reality of the American West. To understand the gunfight, you must first understand Tombstone. It wasn't just another dusty town. In 1881, it was the booming heart of Silver Country, a magnet for men seeking their fortune, and for others looking to take it. This created a deep divide. On one side, you had the townspeople, the merchants, the miners, and the northern capitalists who invested in the mines. They wanted order, stability, and the rule of law. On the other side were the Cowboys, not the heroic figures of folklore, but a loose-knit faction of ranchers and rustlers, mostly Southern sympathizers still bitter about the Civil War. They lived by their own code, out on the vast, open range. These two worlds, the town and the country, were on a collision course. Tombstone was a powder keg, and the Earp brothers had just arrived with a match. Into this tense mix walked Wyatt, Virgil, and Morgan Earp. They weren't born lawmen. They were gamblers, saloon keepers, and occasional peace officers, always looking for the next opportunity. Wyatt, ambitious and steely-eyed, saw Tombstone as a place to make his mark and his fortune. His older brother Virgil, a Civil War veteran, became the town marshal. He was the official law. With them was their friend, Doc Holliday, a dentist from Georgia, dying of tuberculosis, with a gambler's soul and a notoriously short temper. He was loyal to the Earps and deadly with a pistol. Opposing them were the Clantons and the McClorys, Ike and Billy Clanton, Tom and Frank McClory. They were ranchers, but their cattle herds grew suspiciously fast. They were the leaders of the Cowboy faction, and they saw the Earps' brand of town taming as a direct threat to their way of life and their less-than-legal enterprises. The tension simmered for months. Threats were exchanged in saloons. Public accusations were made. The Cowboys saw the Earps as power-hungry tyrants. The Earps saw the Cowboys as lawless thugs. It wasn't about justice. It was about control. The morning of October 26th was cold and windy. The night before, a drunken Ike Clanton had stumbled through Tombstone saloons, loudly threatening to kill the Earps and Doc Holliday. He was arrested and fined, but his anger didn't cool. By afternoon, word reached Virgil Earp that Ike, his brother Billy, and the McClory brothers were armed inside town limits, a violation of a local ordinance. They were gathered in a vacant lot behind the OK Corral on Fremont Street. Virgil made a decision. He deputized his brothers Morgan and Wyatt and asked Doc Holliday to join them. Virgil took Holliday's cane and handed him a shotgun instead. This wasn't about making an arrest anymore. It was a confrontation. The four men walked side by side down Fremont Street. Their long coats billowed in the wind. The townspeople scattered, sensing the impending violence. They were four men walking toward five, a slow, deliberate march towards destiny. They found them in the narrow lot, near a photographer's studio. The five Cowboys were clustered together. Virgil Earp stepped forward. "Throw up your hands, boys. I want your guns." What happened next is a vortex of conflicting accounts and sworn testimony, but the bullets tell their own story. Someone, perhaps Frank McClory, perhaps Billy Clanton, made a move for their pistol. A shot rang out, then another, and the world exploded. It was a chaotic, point-blank brawl, not a choreographed duel. The men were only a few feet apart. Wyatt Earp fired, his first shot hitting Frank McClory in the stomach. Billy Clanton and Tom McClory were also hit in the initial volley. Doc Holliday blasted Tom McClory with his shotgun. Morgan Earp went down, a bullet tearing through his shoulders. Virgil was hit in the leg. Billy Clanton, already wounded, staggered behind a building, firing until he was shot again and collapsed. In just 30 seconds, it was over. The air was thick with gunpowder and the smell of blood. When the smoke cleared, Billy Clanton and both McClory brothers were dead or dying. Ike Clanton, the man whose drunken threats started it all, had run at the first shot, escaping unharmed. A gunfight didn't end the conflict. It ignited a war. Public opinion was sharply divided. To many, the Earps were heroes who had faced down dangerous outlaws. To others, they were murderers who had gunned down men trying to surrender. The Earps and Holliday were charged with murder, but a local judge, a friend of the Earps, cleared them of all charges. This verdict was a death sentence for the Cowboy faction. Vengeance was swift and brutal. 2 months later, Virgil Earp was ambushed, his left arm crippled for life. 3 months after that, Morgan Earp was shot in the back and killed while playing billiards. That was the final straw for Wyatt. The law had failed him. So he became the law. He assembled a federal posse, including Doc Holliday, and embarked on what became known as the Vendetta Ride. They hunted down and killed the men they held responsible for Morgan's murder. It was a grim, bloody campaign of extra-legal justice. When it was over, Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday left Arizona, never to return. The age of the Cowboys in Tombstone was over. The gunfight at the OK Corral became more than a historical event. It became a myth. A foundation story for the American West, retold and reshaped by books and movies until the truth was buried under layers of fiction. The reality was far more complex and far more human. It was a story of flawed men in a harsh land, driven by greed, loyalty, and survival. There were no clear heroes, no simple villains, just a violent clash that left 3 men dead in 30 seconds and echoed through American history. It reminds us that the real West wasn't a romantic adventure. It was a brutal, difficult, and often deadly struggle to carve a civilization out of the wilderness. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into the real Wild West compelling, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more true stories from American history.